speed and the pace of my walk is faster. I don't even need certain lotions and stuff on my skin so much. I think what they put inside the meat is toxic and it comes out through your skin. It comes out in your behavior, your attitude towards life and your approach to certain situations. I'm really under the impression, or just thoroughly convinced, that a lot of what we get and that we call meat, it's not really in the same class as what we used to eat probably a long time ago. They said that they used to, the meat that we used to buy was always locally, grown meat, like cattle and stuff that was like locally, fed and, wrangled, whatever. But it's like now, they said this is the Civil War, when they fought, to free the slaves. They said that they started having certain countries, parts of the country that didn't have meat for the soldiers. So they started shipping the meat to different parts of the country through railway and the railroad and the train system. So they started coming up with like refrigerated boxcars. I wasn't aware that they had that during the Civil War, but I can imagine that, ice, you can get ice, allocate and gather enough ice to put enough boxcars. It's worth, doing that, trying to win a war. So they did that. But the preservatives, I imagine, start kicking in then too, because when you had locally grown meat, people would buy that meat before it sat around for more than a week. But when you're shipping something that's gonna take at least a week to travel to where it's getting to, you gotta put preservatives in it. Sometimes that changes the quality of the meat. With that being said, you're not gonna always get the desired effects of the meat from what you're eating it for. You're gonna get a lot of extra stuff. And if you're a farmer, which is what people have gotten away from, contact with the land has been kind of disconnected. If you're a farmer and you raise your cow for so many years, and then something happens where they don't give you what you fetching for at the market, then you feel like, all the money you put into it, it's been a waste. So what you'll do is you'll try to sell it for something cheap. But then when you sell it for something cheap, you're poisoning people. You're giving them a form of poison to recoup for your own personal loss. You're passing that on to somebody else. It's not always the best thing to do. There's a karma that comes with that. People don't believe in karma no more. The whole universe has to obey karma. Even the so-called gods can't escape karma. Anything that incarnates in the flesh as a member of a host, you got the Lord of hosts. Basically, it's any life form of bacteria that can be inhabited by any life, any spirit of life. The protoplasm and the cytoplasm of a cell is the actual life of a cell. The prison of the cell is the cell membrane, and a plant is the cell wall. So when you're able to corporally incapacitate to a certain degree certain spirits, then you've actually created a host for those spirits and you've imprisoned them within their bodily flesh. The only way you can actually maximize that is to do the least of what makes it the worst place to inhabit. And when you eat meat, you eat all the emotion of the animal before it was slaughtered, unless you're eating a live animal. If you're eating a live animal, then I don't want to go into the ramifications of the emotional content of that being's blood. But when you're eating an animal that's been prepackaged in a slaughterhouse, it's being slaughtered and slain, and it hears all the other animals around it being slaughtered, and it knows that whatever's coming up next is not good, it's gonna have an emotional content from its endocrine system that builds up in the body to the extent of just overload and overkill. And you eat that, and the mass amount of emotional surge that was in that animal right before it died is chemically contained within the endocrine system's last chemicals pumped through his body, and they freeze that, package that, and ship that to you to eat. And when you eat meat, you're consuming that. I'm really leaning towards saying that at some point in time, there may be certain concessions that might have to be made. Think about that movie called Soylent Green with Charlton Heston. And they was like, yo, we started feeding them dead people, yo. It was like, we ain't got no more meat. We barely got enough, green for the people. So they started taking all the dead people that died and they started recycling them. It was like, yo, we mix it with some other stuff. We call it Soylent Green. It's an older movie that Charlton Heston played called Soylent Green. It's actually like, you know what I'm saying, reconstituted dead people. Remember that movie called Survival Flight, something when the plane crashed, and they was like, yo, we ain't got no food, Joe. They was like, well, we've been here about 4 days. We're like, we're gonna start eating each other in a minute. That's what those zombie movies are talking about. It may be literal, but they're talking about the fact that people are hooked on meat. Meat is an addiction. The Food and Drug Administration actually, they make the outlines on what's, you know, allowed to be put in the meat. It's the Food and Drug Administration. So the food is drugged. There's drugs in the food. So certain foods you want to eat, you don't know what drug it is. All you know is that when you eat a certain product, you get that contented feeling that drug that's in there gives you. A lot of those ingredients on the back of the thing, you can't pronounce those because those are drugs. You don't know what you can't pronounce those things. They're complex drugs, and not saying that they're not naturally occurring drugs, but 99.9% of them are preservatives, which means that the food does not break down the same way it preserves it inside the can. It's preserved inside your body, so you don't get a chance to break that down because your body's natural digestive system cannot overcome the preservatives that's been placed into those daggone products that you're eating. And then not only that, when it gets to the point where they start tallying up how many people are eating meat, we start going into an economical debt with certain countries that really don't want to give us meat anyway. So next thing you know, instead of getting actual meat that would have been Class A inspected meat, if there's any such thing, then you're gonna get like whatever was destined for the trash can, just to satisfy, you know what I'm saying, the people. So the zombie thing is like saying that, and that's in Revelations 2 where it says they shall eat her flesh. Talking about Babylon, talking about, you know, the country. They shall eat her flesh. Like saying that there will be nothing to provide food for anybody. The grass, there'll be no grass growing. And once the herbivores die, the carnivores turn on each other and become cannibals. See, that's the ramification, and that's the mechanics of it that people don't want to actually acknowledge. People get to a certain point where they realize that most of what we're doing is we're actually creating an environment for it. And it's based upon the fact that a lot of what's going on is like, if I can't have it, then nobody can. It's a sabotage, so to speak. So with it being sabotaged the way it is, with things being sabotaged the way they are, the most you can do is really control yourself, like me controlling myself. So as it is, I realized that I'm trying to stay away from the meat. It was easier to start smoking cigarettes than it was to stop eating meat. Not eating meat is hard. That's hard. But I need salt and iron supplement that you need. Now women have monthly menses. Women have a monthly period and they have to replace that. So sometimes they might want to indulge. Or certain people don't have a certain mineral content within their skin. If you have melanin to a certain degree and you don't poison it, you pretty much have everything that's in the ground. Because plants give you all the daggone minerals for you. When you eat plants, you ain't got to dig in the ground for stuff. The plants dig it out for you. The plants and the roots and the xylem and the phloem go into the ground and pull it out for you. That's why plants are part of a plan for a planet. Plants are part of a plan for a planet, which means that before you can have a planet, you got to have plants. You got a planet, you have plants on it. And the roots of the soil keep the actual planet from falling apart. Because if you ever pull some plants out of the ground versus being in the desert, that loose sand falls apart. And it's only like the sands in the hourglass of time. It's only a matter of time for your planet blows away by the cosmic winds. So it's the plants that actually make everything. That's why the Bible says, hurt not the green things of the earth, for as much as that's going to be what's going to preserve you. And then as far as water, you get water in your plants too. If you eat plants, you know what I'm saying, the right ones, you ain't got to even drink no water. They'll basically do it for you. You know, there's certain animals that don't even eat meat. Like the largest animals don't even really eat meat. The small creatures, the carnivores are the small creatures. You know what I'm saying? Like you have like, you know what I'm saying, like smaller predators, like, you know, like wolves and like tigers and, you know what I'm saying, and things like that. And the virus is the smallest thing there is. It's the most deadliest of all. But those larger things are not really so bad. You know what I'm saying? They pretty much, you see them coming. And it doesn't mean that you won't, you know, be a part of a mishap, but you usually see those things coming for the most part. And with that being said, I just want to get it, you know what I'm saying? I made this video because I was trying to talk. I ain't gonna go into it, but I was trying to conversation with an important person in my life, and it seems to have been it's been stifling and hampered to the degree that I guess I'm not supposed to be happy today. You know, peace.